And good day. We are coming on the air with breaking news. Just moments ago, NBC News has obtained a copy of the warrant used to carry out this week's FBI search of former President Donald Trump's Florida home. That warrant issued by the Justice Department provides a detailed explanation of exactly what they were looking for. I want to get right to NBC's Justice and Intelligence correspondent, Ken Dilanian. Ken, you're one of the few people at NBC News who's actually seen this document. It is going to post later, but I understand you've obtained it through your sources. What is it telling us?
Tom, it's telling us that the FBI says that they seized 11 sets of classified documents from the former president's Florida home at Mar-a-Lago from among 20 boxes of items, some of which it's not clear whether they're classified or not. And very few of these items are actually labeled in a way that people can understand what they mean, but some are. And one is an executive grant of clemency for Roger Jason Stone Jr., and another is listed as information regarding the president of France. And then in terms of the documents that are labeled classified, and this is from the receipt of property, the list of things that the FBI said they took, which is signed by a lawyer for Donald Trump and by an FBI special agent. Among the list of things they said they took was a designation of documents called various classified TS-SCI documents. That stands for top secret, sensitive, compartmented information. That's a very high level of classification beyond top secret. What it refers to is information that's so secret that you can only see it if you have a need to know within the U.S. government. And then the FBI says they took 4 sets of top secret documents, 3 sets of secret documents, and 3 sets of confidential documents. There's also an attachment, Tom, that explains, it's part of the warrant that explains what the FBI told the judge they were seeking before they got there. And this has some very interesting language in it because it says that the FBI was seeking any physical documents with classification markings, along with any containers or boxes in which such documents are located. It also asked for information, including communications in any form, regarding the retrieval, storage, or transmission of national defense information or classified material, any government or presidential records created between January 2017 and January 20th, 2021, or any evidence of the knowing alteration, destruction, or concealment of any government or presidential records or any documents with classification markings. And lastly, Tom, there's another attachment in which the FBI describes the areas of the property where it will search and where it won't search. It talks about how Mar-a-Lago is a mansion with approximately 58 bedrooms and 33 bathrooms on a 17-acre estate. And the FBI says that they were going to search an area called the 45 office, all storage rooms, and all other rooms or areas within the premises used or available to be used by F. POTUS, the former president of the United States, and his staff, in which boxes or documents could be stored, including all structures or buildings on the estate. And the FBI went on to say they would not search, for example, rooms used by third parties such as Mar-a-Lago members and rooms otherwise not used by the former president. So it was a targeted search. They seized classified documents. They seized documents labeled regarding the president of France. And what's not in here, Tom, is any reference to nuclear material or any label of any kind that describes what these classified materials are. And that would make sense because the FBI is not going to specifically lay out the nature of classified documents.
And Ken, the reason why you say that is because there's a Washington Post report saying that some of these documents could be connected to nuclear issues, and that was some of the major reporting coming out of the Washington Post earlier today. You know, Ken, as you were reading through this, and I understand you've only had a short amount of time to kind of glance through everything, and it's pretty detailed from what you've had so far. It sounds like there was a vast set of documents they were trying to get, but I think it's important for us to explain to the viewers that these documents were not the property of Donald Trump. They were the property of the United States government, correct?
Well, that is certainly the theory of the prosecution and the theory of the FBI and the circumstances under which they seize these documents. I think the Trump team is arguing something different. They are arguing that the president had inherent declassification authority and was free to take any document he wanted from the Oval Office or the White House as long as he said it was declassified. We've spoken to historians and scholars about that, and they don't see much evidence for that point of view in the law. I mean, the president can declassify anything, but there has to be a record of it. We're told there's a process and procedure, and particularly when it comes to highly classified documents, there's no precedent for a president taking these kinds of documents home. There are methods to store these kinds of documents. Former presidents who've written memoirs, for example, have had to go to secure facilities to look at classified documents. So you're absolutely right. According to the Justice Department and the FBI, these documents are the property of the U.S. government.
And I guess the big headline out of all of this right now is that it is clear right now that the documents that the FBI obtained from Mar-a-Lago were indeed, lots of them, both classified and top secret documents.
That's right. Not only top secret, but even a designation higher than top secret. Sensitive, compartmented information that refers to some of the most secret documents in the government, Tom.